Algebra 1 students, welcome to your first piece of our 2.5 notes. We're going to break up our 2.5 notes into two videos. So you're going to have the first 2.5 video today, and then either tomorrow or the next day we'll have our second 2.5 video, just so you know. So today's 2.5 notes are going to work on literal equations and formulas. And we're going to solve each equation for y, and then find the value of y for each x value. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to isolate y. Okay, so we're going to get x all by itself, or we're going to move x to the other side of the equation. Right, so that's going to give us y is equal to negative x plus 18. Alright, and I'm putting it in that order on purpose, guys, because this, you'll see later, is going to look like the equation of a line, and we'll work on that later. But for now, let's go ahead and plug in these values right here. We're going to plug those in for our x values. So the way that we do that is we're going to have y is equal to, alright, and we've got a negative value sitting there. Negative 3 goes inside of there, plus 18. Alright, and a negative times a negative is a positive, so really we have y is equal to 21 in that case. Alright, for our next one, we're going to have y is equal to a negative 2, alright, plus 18. Okay, and in this case, that negative 2 is actually going to be negative, so we are going to be left with y is equal to 16. Okay, we've got a negative, and then we've got x is equal to 5 plus 18. Alright, that's going to be equal to 13. Alright, so for number 2, the first thing I'm going to do is I want to get the y by itself, so I'm going to add 7 to each side of our equation here. Okay, and so we're going to have 2x plus 7 is equal to 5y. Alright, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to just go ahead and flip that equation around. We are totally allowed to do that. It's equivalent. Totally fine to do that. Okay, my next step is I want to get that y by itself, so I want to divide both sides of our equation by 5. Okay, so we're going to be left with y is equal to 2x plus 7 all over 5. Okay, and again, we are trying to find what y is equal to if we use these x values right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and plug those in. Alright, y is going to be equal to 2 times 0 plus 7 over 5. Alright, that's going to basically be 7/5. Okay, because I'm going to have 2 times 0, which is 0, plus 7, which is 7, divided by 5. Okay, also, we're going to have y is equal to 2 times 2 plus 7 over 5. Okay, on this one we're going to have 2 times 2, which is 4, plus 7, so we're going to have 11 in our numerator and 5 in our denominator. Okay, and for our last one we're going to have, I'm going to put it right up here. Okay, y is equal to 2 times 4 plus 7 over 5. Okay, we're going to have 2 times 4, which is 8, 8 plus 7, which is 15, so we're going to have 15 over 5. I can reduce that to 3. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, you can see the instructions here for our second slide, and the instructions say to solve number 3 on your own. Go ahead and pause the video, actually pause it, go ahead and do number 3, and then we'll be back here in a few seconds to talk about how we did it. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Hopefully you actually followed instructions and tried number 3 on your own. If not, you should have done that. Do that next time. Okay, here we go. We want to isolate the y, so what we want to do is move the variable of x to the other side of the equation. We're going to subtract 9y from each side. Alright, and then we are left with a negative 3y equals negative 9x plus 15. So, we're going to divide both sides by negative 3, and we're left with y is equal to 3x minus 5. Okay. Then we went ahead and plugged in all of these values right here. Okay. We've plugged all of those values in for x. Okay. That's what we got. That's how we got all of these values right over here. We went ahead and solved those equations for y to figure out what y was equal to. So we got negative 11, 1, and 13. Okay, there's your explanation. Alright, folks. Sorry about the noise in the last slide there. Somebody was running water in my house. Makes a lot of noise. Hopefully you didn't hear most of that, but anyhow, let's go on. A literal equation is an equation that involves two or more variables. Alright, and a formula is an equation that states a relationship among quantities. Okay, so let's go ahead and solve for x in the next couple of problems here. So we want to get the variable x all by itself, and so we're going to subtract b on both sides here to start with. So we're going to be left with y minus b is equal to mx. Alright, for our second step, we need to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. So we're going to divide both sides by m, and then we have x all by itself is equal to y minus b over m. Okay. Now, in number 5, what I'd like to do first, you guys are probably answering it before I am, is we're going to distribute this 3. So we are going to still have 7x on our left-hand side of our equation. Then we're going to have 3x plus 6y. Alright, next, I want to get x by itself, and so what I need to do is get both x's on the same side of the equation. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 3x on both sides, and then I'm going to be left with 4x is equal to 6y. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is just simply divide both sides by 4, and then I'm going to have x all by itself. I'm going to go ahead and reduce that too, so I'm going to have 3y over 2. Okay? Alright, so we want to get x by itself. Alright, so what I'm going to do, the first thing that I'm going to do is actually multiply both sides by x. Okay, so I'm going to end up with a q on one side, and then I'm going to have an rx over s on my left-hand side. Then I'm going to go ahead and multiply by the reciprocal. Alright, so for those of you who forget what the reciprocal is, the multiplicative inverse is another way we've discussed that. So it's basically we're going to multiply both sides by s over r, because we're trying to get rid of that fraction on the right hand side, so it's going to be the opposite of the inverse. Okay, and when we do that on both sides of the equation, that causes our r's and our s's to cancel out, and then we will be left with x all by itself. Okay, so on the left hand side of the equation we'll have qs over r, and on the right we'll simply have x. Okay, number 7, we're going to solve for the given variable. All right, and the variable that we want to solve for is r. So this one's going to work with a nice little trick where we just simply divide by nt on both sides of the equation. All right, and we're going to be left with PV over nt is equal to r. Our n's canceled out, our t's canceled out, r's sitting there by itself. We're done with that one. Okay? Alright, so for number 8, what we're going to do is we need to solve for b. So I'm going to subtract ax from both sides of our equation. I'm going to be left with by is equal to c minus ax. And then I've got a b sitting there next to the y, which is multiplication. We're trying to solve for b, so I want to divide a y from both sides. Okay, and then I have completed my work. C minus ax over y is equal to b. Okay, for number 9, the first thing I'm going to do is distribute that 3. Alright, and then I am trying to solve for v. Okay, so I'm going to move all of my v's to the left-hand side. I'm going to move everything else to the right-hand side. So in order to do that, I need to subtract 4v from each side. And then I also need to subtract this 3w from each side. Okay, and then I can combine like terms. So I'm going to have a negative 7v on the left-hand side. These guys are going to cancel out, all right, and then these guys are going to cancel out, and I'm going to have negative 5 minus 3w on the right. Now I can divide by negative 7, which will cause those to cancel out. Anything I do to the left-hand side of the equation, I got to do to the right-hand side of the equation. And when I do this one, I'm going to change my signs because I'm dividing everything by a negative, and a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So I'm going to have 5 plus 3w over 7. Okay, everybody, that is the end of our 2.5 notes. For the first set of 2.5 notes, we're going to revisit this section again and work on some other things. Until then, we will see you soon.